That night on the beach still lived in Aisha's heart like it had happened yesterday. The air was warm, the sea was calm, and the moonlight turned the waves silver. She remembered the sound of the water gently hitting the shore, the faint scent of salt, and Jamal's hand holding hers as they walked barefoot in the sand. He seemed nervous, his laugh softer than usual, his eyes glancing at her, and then away, like he was carrying a secret too big to hold much longer. When he stopped and dropped to one knee, Aisha's breath caught. The world felt like it had gone still. Only the two of them existed in that moment. Jamal opened a small velvet box, and inside was a ring unlike anything she had ever seen. It was delicate but bold, its design intricate, like something passed down through generations. He told her it had been in his family for years, a symbol of eternal love. She felt her eyes blur with tears. The thought that his family had trusted her with such a treasure made her chest ache with joy. Jamal's voice shook as he promised her forever. She didn't even notice her own tears falling when she said yes. The applause of the ocean felt like a blessing. Later, sitting together on a blanket, Aisha couldn't stop staring at the ring catching the moonlight. She believed every word he said. To her, that ring wasn't just gold and stone. It was their beginning, their forever. She didn't know then that forever had secrets. In the weeks after the proposal, Aisha wore the ring everywhere. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry to her. It was proof of the love story she believed in. When she walked through her neighborhood in Mombasa, people noticed it right away. The ring wasn't like the shiny, modern ones most people wore. It had a certain old-world charm, with tiny, intricate details that caught the light in a soft, warm way. It looked like something with a history, something that had been loved and treasured for years. Neighbors would stop her in the street to admire it. "Mashallah, Aisha, this is beautiful," one auntie would say, touching her hand lightly. "Your husband must truly adore you." Aisha's cheeks would warm, and she'd smile shyly, feeling a rush of pride. She never got tired of telling people the same story. How Jamal said it was a family heirloom, how it had been passed down through generations, and how it now belonged to her. At the market, the whispers started. Women selling vegetables would glance at her hand, and then lean toward each other. "That's Jamal's wife," they'd murmur, "the one with the special ring. He proposed on the beach, you know. So romantic." Some even joked that Jamal had raised the bar for all the men in the neighborhood. Aisha would walk away with her basket full of fresh mangoes or spices, her heart even fuller. Every compliment, every admiring glance, felt like a confirmation that she was living a love worth envying. She told herself she was lucky, that she had a man who not only loved her but showed it in a grand, unforgettable way. At home, she often caught herself staring at the ring when she was cooking, the gold glinting under the kitchen light. Sometimes she'd take it off, just to hold it in her palm and imagine the hands that had worn it before her. Women in Jamal's family who had lived their own love story. She liked to think they were somehow blessing her marriage, watching over her. In her mind, the ring became more than just a gift from Jamal. It was a shield against doubt, a sign that what they had was strong. Even when he was busy, when he came home late and tired, she'd look at that ring and remind herself that love like theirs didn't break easily. She had no idea that the same ring that made her feel so proud, the same one that made her a little famous in her community, carried a truth that would one day shatter her completely. For now, it was her crown, her proof, her treasure, and she wore it like the luckiest woman in the world. It started slowly, so slowly that Aisha barely noticed at first. One evening, Jamal came home later than usual, saying there had been a work emergency. He looked tired, his shirt a little wrinkled, his phone buzzing in his pocket. She didn't think much of it. Everyone had long days sometime, but then it happened again the next week, and again after that. Soon, late nights became normal. Aisha tried to be understanding. She told herself that Jamal was working hard for their future. Whenever he walked through the door past midnight, she would greet him with a smile, even if her heart felt heavy. He'd give her a quick kiss on the forehead, mumble something about a client meeting or a last-minute project, then disappear into the shower. Sometimes he would eat dinner alone in silence while scrolling on his phone. She'd sit across from him, pretending not to notice how distracted he was, convincing herself that this was just a busy season and things would go back to how they used to be. She remembered the man who once planned candlelit dinners on the beach, the man who had promised her forever under the stars. Surely that man was still there, just tired, just stressed. The ring on her finger became her comfort. On nights when she felt a knot of worry in her stomach, she'd twist it gently, letting the gold warm against her skin. It was her reminder that Jamal had chosen her, that his love was real. After all, he had given her a family treasure, something priceless. Men didn't give that to women they didn't truly love. Her friends began to notice. "You don't see Jamal as much these days," one of them said casually over tea. Aisha laughed it off, saying he was just busy. She didn't want to open the door to questions she couldn't answer. Even when she saw his smile looking a little more forced, his phone calls taken in another room, she pushed the thoughts away. Sometimes at night, she would wake up and realize his side of the bed was empty. She'd find him in the living room, sitting in the glow of his phone screen, typing quickly. When she asked who he was talking to, he'd shrug and say, "Work stuff, go back to sleep." And she did because she wanted to believe him. In her heart, she clung to the love story they had built. She told herself every relationship had ups and downs, and that theirs was strong enough to survive a few late nights. She refused to see the cracks forming beneath the surface. As long as the ring was still on her finger, she believed they were unbreakable. What she didn't know was that the cracks were already widening, and the truth was slowly making its way toward her. It happened on a sunny afternoon in the busy streets of Mombasa. Aisha was at the market, balancing a basket of fresh vegetables, when she heard someone call her name. She turned and saw Miriam, her childhood friend she hadn't seen in years. Back in school, they had been inseparable, but life had taken them in different directions. Miriam now lived in Nairobi and, as Aisha soon learned, had become a jeweler with her own small but thriving shop. They hugged, laughing at how much time had passed. Miriam looked the same, but carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had built something with her own hands. As they caught up, Miriam's eyes drifted to Aisha's left hand. Her smile faltered. "That's quite a ring," Miriam said slowly, her gaze fixed on it. Aisha felt a small swell of pride and lifted her hand for Miriam to see. "Beautiful, isn't it? It's been in Jamal's family for generations," she said, repeating the story she had told so many others. Miriam reached out, turning Aisha's hand gently so the light caught the details. Her fingers lingered on the band, tracing the small engraving. For a brief second, her expression was unreadable, almost cautious. "You should bring it by my shop next time you're in Nairobi," she said, her tone light but her eyes sharper than before. "I could give it a professional cleaning, make it sparkle even more." Aisha laughed. "It doesn't need it, but maybe I will. It's already perfect." "Still," Miriam replied, "some things are worth looking at closely, especially things we think we know." She smiled then, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. That comment stayed with Aisha long after they parted ways. She tried to brush it off, telling herself Miriam was just being a jeweler, always eager to see fine pieces up close. But deep inside something stirred, a tiny seed of curiosity, or was it unease? That night, as she cooked dinner, she found herself studying the ring more than usual. She knew every line, every curve, every little imperfection. But now she wondered about its past in a way she never had before. Who had worn it before her? What stories did it carry? When Jamal came home late again, she didn't mention meeting Miriam. She didn't want to start a conversation that might feel like she was doubting him. Instead, she told herself she'd make that trip to Nairobi soon, if only to see her old friend again. She had no idea that Miriam's offer was more than just a friendly suggestion. It was the first crack in the story she believed, the first step toward a truth she wasn't ready to face. When Aisha finally made the trip to Nairobi, she was excited to see Miriam's shop. It was small but warm and inviting, filled with the soft sparkle of gold and silver under warm lights. Glass cases displayed delicate necklaces, rings, and bracelets, each one carefully arranged like a tiny piece of art. Miriam greeted her with a hug and that same warm smile, though Aisha noticed it was mixed with a hint of seriousness. "Let's take a proper look at that ring," Miriam said, leading her to a quiet back room away from customers. The room smelled faintly of polish and metal. On the workbench, tiny tools were neatly lined up, and a magnifying lamp glowed softly. Aisha slipped the ring off her finger and placed it in Miriam's hand. "Be gentle," she teased. "It's special." Miriam didn't smile this time. She held the ring under the lamp, turning it slowly, her eyes sharp and focused. "It's beautiful," she said. "But, Aisha, there's something you should know." A strange feeling settled in Aisha's stomach. "What do you mean?" Miriam hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "This ring, it's not an heirloom. I've seen it before. In fact, I know exactly where it came from, a pawn shop here in Nairobi. I remember because it's unique, and I cleaned it once for the shop owner before it went up for sale." The words didn't make sense at first. "No," Jamal said. Miriam gently interrupted. "There's more. Look inside the band." She handed Aisha a magnifying glass. Her hands were shaking as she brought the ring close to her eyes. There it was, an engraving so small she had never noticed it before. The letters were worn but clear enough to read. "To Zuri, forever yours, Jamal." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. She stared at the words, her mind struggling to process them. "Zuri," she whispered. Her throat felt tight. "Forever yours?" Miriam's eyes were full of sympathy. "I'm sorry, Aisha. I didn't want to believe it either. But the truth is here, in this ring." Aisha sat back in her chair, her heart pounding in her ears. Images flashed through her mind. The night on the beach, Jamal's trembling voice, the way she had cherished this ring as a symbol of their love. All of it now felt like a cruel joke. She wanted to cry, to shout, to demand an explanation, but all she could do was sit in stunned silence, the ring cold and heavy in her hand. In that quiet back room, surrounded by the glimmer of other people's treasures, Aisha realized hers had never really been hers at all, and the man who promised her forever had given her someone else's love story. Aisha waited until that evening to confront Jamal. She sat at the dining table with the ring in front of her, its gold catching the faint light from the overhead bulb. Her hands were cold, her mind rehearsing what she was going to say. When Jamal finally walked in, smelling faintly of cologne and the city night, she didn't greet him with her usual smile. "We need to talk," she said, her voice calm but firm. He glanced at the ring on the table and chuckled. "What's this? Are you polishing it now?" Her eyes stayed on him. "Who is Zuri?" The smile faded from his face, replaced by a flicker of confusion. Or was it fear? He let out a short laugh, the kind people use when they're trying to buy time. "Where'd you hear that name?" "I saw it," she said, pushing the ring toward him. "It's engraved inside. To Zuri, forever yours, Jamal. And Miriam told me exactly where this ring came from. A pawn shop. Not your family. Not an heirloom." He leaned back, crossing his arms. "So you went digging around behind my back? For what?" "Some stupid engraving." Her voice stayed steady. "For the truth." Jamal sighed loudly, as if she were being unreasonable. "Fine. Yes, Zuri was my ex. I bought that ring for her years ago. Things didn't work out, and I kept it. I wasn't about to waste money on another one when I already had this. It's just a ring, Aisha. Why are you making it such a big deal?" Her chest tightened. "Because you stood on a beach and told me it was a symbol of your family's love. You lied to my face." He shrugged, his tone growing sharper. "So what? The ring still means something if you let it. Why are you acting like this changes everything?" "It changes everything because I thought I was wearing our story," she said quietly. "Instead, I've been wearing someone else's." Jamal rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic. If I'd told you the truth from the start, you would have made it into some problem. This way we had a nice memory. Why ruin it?" Aisha stared at him, really seeing him. The man who could twist lies into something he thought sounded reasonable. The man who could give another woman's ring and call it love. She realized then that this conversation wasn't just about a piece of jewelry. It was about the person he truly was. She picked up the ring, feeling its weight one last time before setting it down again. "I'm not the one who ruined it, Jamal. You did." He looked away, muttering something under his breath, but she didn't ask him to repeat it. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. She was ready to face it head-on, no matter what it cost her. That night after the confrontation, Aisha lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Jamal snored beside her. Her heart felt heavy, but her mind was sharp, almost too sharp. She knew she could cry and scream and demand answers all night, but what would that change? The truth was out, and it was worse than she imagined. She realized something important. If Jamal could lie so easily about the ring, he could be hiding much more. The next morning, she put on her calmest face. She acted as though she had accepted his explanation, nodding and giving short answers when he spoke. Inside, she was far from calm. She was building a plan. Whenever Jamal was out late, she took notes in a small notebook she kept hidden in the lining of her handbag. She wrote down dates, times, and the excuses he gave. She started paying attention to the clothes he wore when he left and the mood he came home in. Soon, she turned her focus to the money. She carefully went through their bank statements, taking pictures with her phone and storing them in a secret folder. She noticed strange withdrawals, payments she didn't recognize, and cash going missing. She also found receipts for expensive dinners at restaurants she had never been to. During the day, while Jamal was at work, she quietly searched the house for papers, contracts, business records, anything that had his name on it. She copied them and kept them in a file at Miriam's shop for safekeeping. If Jamal was hiding something in his business, she was going to find out. She also started taking mental notes of his behavior. The sudden phone calls he took in another room. The way he locked his phone whenever she got near it. The quick changes in his mood if she asked too many questions. But she didn't confront him again. Not yet. She understood that reacting with anger would only make him more careful. Instead, she played her role, the supportive wife who trusted her husband, while quietly building a wall of evidence around herself. Some nights, she sat alone in the kitchen with the ring in front of her, staring at the inscription. The hurt was still there, but something else had replaced the hopelessness, determination. She would not let Jamal's lies destroy her dignity. She would not be caught unprepared when the truth about him fully came to light. In her heart, she knew this wasn't about saving the marriage anymore. It was about protecting herself, her future, and everything she had worked for. And when the time came to expose him, she wanted to make sure there would be no way for him to twist the story or make her the fool. Aisha wasn't just heartbroken anymore. She was ready for war, and she would fight it quietly until the day she chose to strike. The night of the family dinner, Aisha felt a strange calm. She had dressed simply, her hair neatly tied back, the infamous ring sitting on her finger as it always did. Jamal's family had gathered at his mother's house. A long table filled with steaming dishes, laughter, and the warm smell of spiced rice and roasted meat. Jamal was in his element, telling stories, his voice loud enough to command the whole room. It didn't take long before he brought up the proposal story. He always did. "You should have seen her face that night on the beach," he said, grinning proudly. "I gave her the family ring, passed down for generations. It's a piece of our history." The table erupted in soft ahs and nod. Jamal's mother, who had never fully accepted Aisha, smirked in a way that said, "See, my son knows how to treat a woman." Aisha listened quietly, her hands resting in her lap. She felt her heartbeat steady, her mind clear. When Jamal paused for dramatic effect, she reached for her glass of water, took a sip, and then, without a word, slipped the ring off her finger. She placed it gently in the center of the table. The gold glinted under the warm lights. "Since we're talking about history," she said in an even voice, "maybe we should read the part of this story that's engraved right here." The room went still. Aisha picked up the ring and turned it so the inscription faced upward. Her voice was steady, almost too calm, as she read aloud, "To Zuri, forever yours, Jamal." The words seemed to hang in the air like smoke. For a moment, no one moved. Then all eyes shifted to Jamal. His smile had vanished, his face tightening as though he'd been slapped. "That's not," he began, but his voice cracked. Jamal's mother's smirk disappeared. She leaned forward, squinting at the ring, her lips parting in shock. "Zuri," she repeated, her voice sharp. She looked at her son as if she was seeing him for the first time. An awkward, heavy silence filled the room. Aisha didn't look away from Jamal. She didn't yell or cry. She simply slid the ring back toward him across the table. "You might want to return this to its real owner," she said softly. The rest of the dinner was dead quiet. Plates were pushed aside, spoons rested untouched. No one seemed to know where to look. Aisha excused herself early, walking out into the cool night air with her head high. Behind her, the sound of whispers rose, the kind that didn't stop once they started. She knew by morning, everyone in the extended family would know the truth. And for the first time in months, she felt lighter, not because the pain was gone, but because the lie was finally dead in public. Leaving Jamal wasn't loud or dramatic. There was no shouting, no broken dishes, no begging. One morning, Aisha simply packed her clothes, her important documents, and the small notebook full of notes she had been keeping for months. She left the keys on the kitchen counter and walked out of the house without looking back. For a few days, she stayed with Mariam in Nairobi. The two friends spent long nights talking, sometimes in laughter, sometimes in silence, sometimes with tears slipping down Aisha's cheeks without warning. Mariam didn't push her to move on too quickly, but she did ask one important question. "What do you want to do now? Not for him, not for anyone else, but for you?" That question stayed in Aisha's mind. She thought about her love for jewelry, how she had always admired the detail in every piece, how much she had cherished the ring before learning the truth. And then she thought about the power of wearing something that truly belonged to you. That's when the idea began to form. She decided to start a jewelry design business, one where every piece told a personal story. With Mariam's skills as a jeweler and Aisha's eye for beauty and meaning, they became partners. They worked from a small workshop at the back of Mariam's store, sketching designs late into the night, melting and shaping metals, setting stones with care. Aisha poured her heart into the work. Her first collection carried the message she wished she had understood earlier. Every woman deserves a ring with her name on it. It wasn't just a slogan, it was her truth. Each ring was custom-made, engraved with the wearer's name or a message chosen by them. No secondhand love stories, no hidden pasts, only pieces made for the woman who would wear them. The story of her brand spread quickly. Women in the community loved the idea, and soon, orders began coming from other towns. Some customers came in with tears in their eyes, sharing stories of betrayal or loss, and left smiling with a piece that was made just for them. Aisha found healing in the process. Every sale felt like a small victory, not just for her business, but for her own strength. She was no longer the woman clinging to a ring that carried someone else's promise. She was the woman creating rings that celebrated women's worth. Sometimes late at night, she would think about Jamal, not with longing, but with a strange gratitude. His lies had hurt her, but they had also pushed her to discover who she was without him. And now, surrounded by the glow of her finished pieces, she knew one thing for sure. She would never again wear something that wasn't truly her. Months passed, and Aisha's life looked nothing like it had before. Her shop was always full. Women coming in to choose pieces that celebrated themselves, couples designing rings together, daughters buying gifts for their mothers. The message behind her brand had spread far beyond Mombasa, and orders were coming from across the country. One afternoon, while delivering a custom piece to a client at a cafe, she saw Jamal across the street. He was sitting alone, his clothes less crisp than she remembered, his face tired. She overheard someone mention that he had lost a few business deals after whispers of his dishonesty started to follow him. The charm that once drew people in now seemed to work on no one. Aisha didn't walk over. She didn't need to. Her revenge wasn't in words. It was in the life she had built without him. That weekend, she took a walk along the same beach where he had proposed. The sky was clear, the waves gentle, just like that night. But this time she was alone, and she felt free. She reached into her bag and pulled out the ring, the one that had started it all. She held it in her palm for a moment, feeling its weight one last time. Then, without hesitation, she threw it into the ocean. The sun caught the gold for a split second before it vanished beneath the water. A small smile spread across her face. She turned and walked away, the wind in her hair, her heart light. The ring was gone, but she had kept the most valuable thing, herself.